This is Git setup, initialization, and cloning, and we're just going to show you how to get Git ready to go. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is set up your configurations. So your username and your email address. And the way that you do that on a global level so that it applies to all of your projects that you use in Git unless you override them is to use the -- global to the config setting. So user.name and user.email are the normal ones. And then you can check the values of any of the config settings by using git config. And we can see that we've set that properly. So now all of our commits will use -- and that email address for the author and the committer. And you can check that out. It keeps that information in your home directory under the .git config file. Or in your .git directory under the config file as an override. But for all of these, we're using the -- global flag, and so that's where it keeps them. And we'd also like to turn on some color, so we're using the color.status, color.branch, and there are a few other options as well. So to begin, let's create a new project and put it into Git. So git init is how we would start that. So we're going to use Rails to create a new directory structure and go into that project directory and then run git init. And now we can have a .git directory in our project. And you can see that it's empty. There's not anything in the objects directory, which is where Git stores its actual compressed objects. So right now there's nothing in the Git directory in our Git repository. So let's run ls files. This will tell us what is in our index file right now. And with the -- stage, we can see all of the SHAs as well. And git status will show us that we have all these new files in here, and we'll do our initial commit. So we'll just create some initial commit message. And we can see that Git has added all of those files into its repository. And now when we run git status, our working directory is clean. So we can see that the commit went properly. And when we run git log, we can see our first commit message in there. Now, if we look in the Git directory, we can see that added, in fact, a whole bunch of objects into our objects directory. So that's where we can find those files. That's how Git actually stores this data. But we can look at that manually just to make sure that the add and the commit are doing what they're supposed to. Another way that we can get a Git directory is to clone an existing one. So in this instance, I'm going to clone my ticket Git repository. And all you have to do is run git clone and put the URI of where that repository is stored. And if I change directories into the new directory that was created, I can see that I have the entire history and I have the entire repository that was cloned. The next thing we're going to do is clone from a different type of transport. So we're going to try an HTTP-based clone, which is a dumb transport. It's not as efficient as the Git protocol that we used earlier. And I'll clone a similar project called Kipling, and we can see that instead of compressing and downloading a pack file, it's actually walking every object and doing an HTTP fetch for that object. And in this particular one, Git will name the repository, the directory after the repository, so whatever's in front of the .git there. So if I wanted to name it something else, you can put a different name on the end of the command line. And we're just going to do it over again, although it would be just as easy to move the directory. But just to give you an idea of how you can name a project something different. And now if I get in there, it doesn't matter if you do it over a dumb transport or over the Git protocol, you get the same thing in the end.